Chapter 1: A chocolate bar made to save a society. What if a chocolate bar wasn't created for pleasure but to change society? Not for profit. Not for indulgence. But as a response to one of the most serious social problems in 19th century Britain: alcohol. Today, when you unwrap a bar of Cadbury dairy milk, it feels ordinary. Familiar. Comforting. But 2 centuries ago, chocolate meant something very different. It was part of a moral mission. A belief that business could, in some way, make society better. From a small shop in Birmingham, one family didn't just build a company, they built an idea. A vision of a kinder form of capitalism. And yet, nearly 200 years later, a single multi-billion-pound deal would force the entire nation to ask a difficult question. What really happened to Cadbury? And does the brand we know today still carry the same spirit? Chapter 2: The Quaker Mission, when business was about principles. The story begins in 1824, when a 22-year-old man named John Cadbury opened a small grocer's shop at 93 Bull Street in Birmingham. He sold tea, coffee and cocoa. But what made him different wasn't what he sold. It was why he sold it. At the time, Britain was facing a widespread social crisis. The gin craze had taken hold of the working class, bringing with it poverty, addiction, and instability. As a Quaker, John Cadbury believed deeply in discipline, morality, and social responsibility. And instead of profiting from alcohol, he chose to offer an alternative. Chocolate drinks. Warm. Sweet. And, in his eyes, far healthier. In fact, Cadbury's early cocoa was marketed as a health drink, sometimes even mixed with ingredients like lentils or barley. The business grew steadily. By 1842, he was producing 11 types of cocoa and 16 varieties of drinking chocolate. But success didn't last forever. By the 1860s, declining health forced John to step back. The company was struggling. And its future was uncertain. That's when the next generation stepped in. Chapter 3: Reinvention, Competition, Innovation, and a Shift in Thinking. When Richard Cadbury and George Cadbury took over, they inherited a business on the brink. But they didn't just want to survive. In 1847, Fry's company, J.S. Fry and Amp, Sons, created the world's first solid chocolate, pushing Cadbury to innovate quickly. They invested in new cocoa processing technology from the Netherlands, producing a purer, smoother product. In 1866, Cadbury introduces Cocoa Essence, UK's first unadulterated cocoa. Sales increased so much, it marked a major turning point for Cadbury. Cocoa Essence transforms a small business into the worldwide company that Cadbury is today. In a market where adulteration was common, Cadbury took a different approach: honesty. Absolutely pure, therefore best. It wasn't just a slogan. It was a statement of intent. But competition was fierce. In 1868, Richard Cadbury introduced decorated, heart-shaped chocolate boxes for Valentine's Day. For the first time, chocolate became more than food. It became a gift. A symbol of emotion. And from that moment on, chocolate would never be the same again. Chapter 4: Bournville, a different kind of industrial revolution. While many industrialists focused purely on profit, George Cadbury had a broader vision. The first Cadbury Easter egg was introduced in 1875, considered the first chocolate Easter egg that led to countless other companies producing their own versions for the holiday. In 1879, he moved the factory to a new location and began building something extraordinary: Bournville. At a time when most British workers lived in overcrowded, polluted slums, Bournville offered something radically different. Clean housing. Green spaces. Schools. A real sense of community. There were no pubs. No signs of the social issues that plagued industrial cities. And it didn't stop there. Cadbury provided pensions, medical care, and better-than-average wages for workers. They were also among the first companies to reduce the working week and introduce time off for bank holidays. This wasn't just good business. It was a social experiment. A belief that companies could, and should, take responsibility for the lives of the people who worked for them. And for many in Britain, Cadbury became a symbol of exactly that. Chapter 5: Dairy Milk, when chocolate became part of British life. In 1905, Cadbury launched a product that would define its future, dairy milk. With its famous "a glass and a half of milk" formula, it was creamier, smoother, and more accessible than ever before. The iconic milk symbol on the packaging represented the real quantity of milk used in each bar. And this mattered, because chocolate was no longer a luxury. By the 1930s, Cadbury estimated that around 90% of the British population could afford chocolate. It had become part of everyday life. During both World Wars, Cadbury played a significant role. They supplied chocolate to troops. They supported the war effort. And parts of their factories were even repurposed for medical and industrial use. The brand became more than a business. It became part of the national story. And perhaps most unexpectedly, a young schoolboy who once tasted Cadbury chocolate samples would grow up to become Roald Dahl, later writing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. A fictional story, inspired, in part, by a very real company. Chapter 6: Crisis and Controversy, a deal that divided Britain. In 1971, the Cadbury creme eggs as we know it today hit the shelves. TV advertising helped sales take off in 1975, and now, over 200 million cream eggs are sold every year in the UK. In 1990, a visitor attraction, Cadbury World, is created to replace factory tours. It was designed to tell the history of chocolate and the Cadbury brand. It was a hit, welcoming over 350,000 visitors in the very first year. By the early 2000s, Cadbury was operating in a very different world. A global, highly competitive market. In 2003, a major crisis in India shook consumer confidence. But Cadbury responded quickly, improving packaging, rebuilding trust, and recovering its position. It was a reminder of the brand's resilience. But a far bigger challenge was coming. In 2010, Kraft Foods acquired Cadbury in a deal worth billions. The reaction in Britain was immediate and emotional. This wasn't just another corporate acquisition. For many, it felt like something deeply British had been lost. Cadbury later became part of Mondelez International, one of the world's largest snack companies. And with that came change. Some products, such as the cream egg, underwent recipe adjustments, sparking backlash from British consumers. Others felt the brand itself had changed. Not dramatically, but subtly. And slowly, a question began to surface. Had Cadbury lost something along the way? Chapter 7: Legacy. What does Cadbury mean today? Today, Cadbury remains one of the most recognized chocolate brands in the world. Its products are sold in over 40 countries. But in Britain, its meaning goes beyond market share. Cadbury once held royal warrants from Queen Victoria and later Queen Elizabeth II, marking its place within British cultural life. For many people, Cadbury is not just chocolate. It's childhood. It's Christmas. It's familiarity. And yet, perceptions have changed. Some say the taste is different. Others feel the brand has become more global and less personal. Whether that's true or not is open to debate. But perhaps the more important question is this: what do we expect from the brands we love? Because sometimes, it's not just about the product. It's about what that product represents. And when you take a bite of Cadbury today, are you tasting chocolate? Or a piece of history? Do you think Cadbury has stayed true to its original values? Or has it become something entirely different? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.